still remember my first Coetail blog post and how nervous I was posting my ideas out into the World Wide Web. In fact, that was one of the main things that led me to my goals for my final project. I wanted the students to have the same feeling of being nervous, of wondering who is going to see this, that I had had. It was those feelings that caused me to really think about what I was sharing. I wanted their writing to not just be for a teacher or a grade, but for themselves. By being more engaged and empowered through different activities, I hope to see that reflected in the analysis students put in their writing. In the past, students had gotten so caught up in explaining the storyline that they did not share their analysis of the events. My focus was activities that helped strengthen students' understandings of different perspectives and ideas to help them analyze To Kill a Mockingbird's themes in a stronger way. There is a famous quote from To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus is talking to Scout, his young daughter, and he says, "If you can learn a simple trick, Scout, you'll get along a lot better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it." This was the goal of our unit, to have students take on different perspectives and imagine the world through different eyes, or shoes. To introduce this idea, we started by looking at the broader themes in the novel, mainly racism. We helped the students get some perspective by examining current events in the United States. We read articles about Ferguson, looked at images we found online, and the students had some debates about what they felt were the main issues. To synthesize the facts and information, the students created a panel comprised of a community member, a teacher, a student, a religious figure, a police officer, and the mayor. The panel had to create 5 steps for moving forward in the future. The students weren't just talking about what had happened, but had to analyze the facts and decide how they could improve race relations in their community in the future. We spent some time discussing the presentation Zen elements, and the students went from one type of presentation to an entirely different one. The students came up with some powerful ideas for how to move forward, and were able to see the power everyday people have for enacting change in their communities. The next important step in having the students able to understand and analyze the novel was giving them a chance to interact with the novel. The best place for this was during the trial of Tom Robinson, because it's full of a lot of complex ideas, and there are many different characters' perspectives that are presented. The students took to Twitter, a Twitter-like interface that I created in Google Docs. Living in France, some things are blocked, and Twitter is one of them. The students responded in real time to the trial as if they were sitting in the courtroom listening to the testimonies of the characters. To create a more authentic audience, we did this across the 8th grade. Lucky for us, they meet at the same time. The students responded to tweets from not only their classmates, but from the other 8th grade classrooms around the building, giving them a wider audience. I noticed my students were more engaged and more concerned because it wasn't just the classmates they engaged with on a regular basis, but they had to prove themselves to a new audience.
No, seriously, say that women and children should not hear this, and that they just want it to be over.
And it will be a bad influence.
Yeah, it would be a bad influence on other people. Just try to put that in a short sentence.
Maybe one of the best moments of the entire project was when the bell rang for a break and the students raced into the hallway to find students from the other classes to discuss the ideas they had written. They remained in character even after leaving the classroom. They had really walked in the other's skin and had taken on the perspective of the characters in the book, maybe to the extreme. They even raced back to class to finish the activity, missing some of their break to get started again.
I like the Twitter activity a lot. It was nice to exchange with the other classes and pretending to be different characters was interesting.
This activity was the Twitter activity because very fun and analytical.
My favorite activity was when we had to do the tweeting project because I think it was cool being connected at the same time as all the other English classes and commenting on each other's answers.
Enjoyed the tweeting session best. I found it interesting because it let us explore the different views of each character in an original and fun way.
The final thread was translating these perspective shifts to their writing. After all, my main goal was for the students to improve the way they wrote about the novel. I have had a lot of difficulty with student writing in the past, and I remember listening to a podcast about flipped learning and how the students said they finally had time to master a skill because they had time to digest the material. So I flipped my first lesson to teach students thesis statements. The students watched 2 different videos explaining what a thesis statement was, and they wrote their own thesis statement about any topic from the book. We did discuss some ideas in class before they went home that night. The students were given the freedom to choose the topic that they felt the most connected to. They wrote their thesis statement into a Google Doc to discuss the next day. They didn't even have to write their names if they did not want to. The outcome was amazing. I've never had such good thesis statements from an 8th grade. The best part was the students were chatting with each other outside of class time, asking questions and responding to questions from their classmates within the Google Doc. The students do not have a lot of freedom normally, so some of them had a difficult time with the ability to write their essay however they wanted. And I will be honest, we were a bit rushed at the end to get their writing done before their spring break. But most of them rose to the challenge, and their essays were filled with analysis rather than a play-by-play of the novel, as it has been in the past. The students connected to the novel and its themes, and were able then to connect them to their world. The best part of the whole experience is that they all said they loved the book. Not an easy feat when you spend over 3 months looking at a novel.
I like the writing assignment because we got to choose what we see most in the book, such as racism and maturing. And we did not have to write a really long essay that just went on and on. Plus, we could only write about one thing, which helped us keep us on track and focus on what we had to write about.
I really like writing the essay on To Kill a Mockingbird because we could choose our topics and it made the essay just more personal. And for me, it was the best writing assignment of the year.
I think it was pretty good because I think it was important for 9th grade children, and I liked it because I discovered what a thesis statement was, and it was good to understand the story of To Kill a Mockingbird better.
Writing an essay isn't always fun. However, writing this one was fairly interesting because it helped me understand more Harper Lee's message. I think that after writing it, I started having a different point of view of our world. It made me see more clearly the inequalities that I haven't really paid attention to before.
What I will change for the future is more chances for voices other than the ones in the building. I want the students to blog and connect with other schools so the students will have more feedback. I believe that the wider the scope, the more investment the students will have in the activity, and the greater the perspective they will gain. I've always strived to make learning fun for students, but I think that that was the wrong goal. What I've learned through Coetail and this project is that I need to make the learning authentic. The students have to be invested in their learning for reasons other than a grade to make the learning valuable. Their success with this project was the engagement and investment that they had, and it wasn't because we were doing something fun, but rather we were doing something that mattered.